Most people think building wealth is supposed to feel exciting, like you need perfect discipline, endless motivation, or some extreme hustle mindset to finally get ahead financially. But honestly, that's not how it works. Real wealth is usually built through things that are incredibly boring. And the weird part? That's actually a good sign. Because the people who quietly save six figures, invest consistently, and build real financial freedom are usually not relying on willpower every single day. They're not constantly making smart money decisions. Instead, they've built simple habits that run almost automatically in the background of their lives. And once I understood this, my entire view of money changed. People who are great with money aren't fighting their brains all day long. They've simply created systems and habits that make saving feel easy and spending require more effort. So today, I want to share 10 extremely boring habits that have helped me save serious money over time. None of these habits are flashy. They won't make your life look impressive on social media. But these small daily behaviors have probably had a bigger impact on my finances than anything else I've ever done. And they're actually pretty simple to start. Before we dive in, I want to know a little about you. Drop a comment below and tell me, how old are you? Where are you watching from? What do you do for a living? And honestly, how satisfied are you right now with your income and overall financial situation? No judgment, just real answers. Because the more honest you are about where you are, the easier it becomes to move forward. So let's get into them. Habit 1. Eating the same meals every week. This first habit sounds ridiculously boring at first, but it's honestly one of the biggest reasons some people naturally spend less money without even trying. And that habit is this: eating almost the same meals every single week. Not because you lack options, not because you're obsessed with budgeting, but because it removes an insane amount of daily decision-making from your life. When you rotate the same 4 or 5 meals every week, something interesting happens. Your grocery shopping becomes automatic. You already know what to buy. You know what ingredients you need. You stop wandering through the store making impulse purchases. And your grocery bill becomes way more predictable. You also waste far less food because you're actually cooking what you bought instead of experimenting with random recipes every week. And surprisingly, it doesn't feel as boring as people think. In fact, having a simple meal system removes stress. You don't spend 30 minutes every evening asking, "What should I eat tonight?" It's already decided. And that small change saves more money than most people realize. Now, if eating the same meals every week sounded boring, this next habit might sound even worse. But honestly, this one saves an unbelievable amount of money over time. Habit 2. Empty your fridge before you restock. Before buying more food, try to finish the food you already have. Most people don't do this. They go grocery shopping while their freezer is still packed. There's food hidden in the back of the fridge, and half the pantry hasn't even been touched yet. And because of that, a huge amount of food ends up getting wasted. According to multiple studies, the average household throws away hundreds, sometimes thousands, of dollars worth of food every year. And most of the time, it's just forgotten food. The vegetables you planned to cook later. The leftovers you forgot existed. The frozen food buried under 5 other frozen things. Instead of instantly buying more food, I first try to clear out the fridge, freezer, and pantry as much as possible. And honestly, it changes the way you think about spending. For example, before a big grocery run, we'll start using the frozen chicken, leftover vegetables, pasta, canned food, rice, eggs, whatever is already there. Sometimes the meals are super simple, but that's kind of the point. Because when you constantly restock before finishing what you already bought, your kitchen slowly becomes storage for future waste. And one thing I've noticed is that the people who are good with money usually respect what they already own. Whether it's food, clothes, gadgets, or subscriptions, they fully use things before replacing them. Also, a small trick that helps if repeating meals starts feeling boring is changing the flavor instead of changing the entire meal. Different sauces, spices, or seasonings can make the same ingredients feel completely different. So instead of constantly buying more, you learn how to make better use of what's already in front of you. Habit 3. Stop buying everything in bulk. Now this one might sound a bit controversial, because most people have heard the same advice for years. Just buy in bulk, go to Costco, it saves money. And yes, that advice is partially true, but only for the right things. The problem is, most people apply it to everything. And that's where things quietly start costing more. Because unless you're feeding a large family or have very predictable consumption, bulk buying can actually lead to more waste, not more savings. For example, things like meat, eggs, dairy, and essentials like toilet paper. Buying in bulk usually makes sense. We still do that. But when it comes to most fresh food, buying large quantities often backfires. Because what happens is simple. You think you're going to use everything. You imagine yourself eating all those avocados before they go bad. You picture finishing that big pack of spinach. You believe you'll somehow get to it later. But real life doesn't work like that. And slowly, food starts going bad in the fridge. That's where money quietly disappears. Not at checkout, but in the trash. So you buy for that imaginary version of yourself, not the real one. And that gap is where waste happens. Instead of buying a huge bag of something and hoping it gets used, I buy smaller amounts and actually finish them first. Yes, it means slightly more frequent shopping sometimes. You stop overloading your fridge with, maybe I'll eat this later items, and you start respecting food as something you fully finish, not something you partially use and forget. Habit 4. Make coffee at home, but don't make it boring. You've probably heard it before. Just stop buying your daily coffee and you'll save thousands a year. And yes, mathematically, that's true. But psychologically, that advice often fails. Because when people remove something they enjoy without replacing it properly, something interesting happens. They don't just save money, they start feeling restricted. So instead of fixing your finances, you just shift the spending somewhere else. That's why the better approach isn't to remove coffee from your life. It's to change how you experience it. For me, I still drink coffee every day, but I don't treat all coffee the same. There's a big difference between survival coffee and intentional coffee. Survival coffee is the autopilot one. You're half asleep, you grab it because you need caffeine, and you don't even remember drinking it. That's usually where daily expensive cafe habits quietly drain money without adding much value. So instead, I shifted that habit home. Not in a restrictive way, but in a way that actually feels better. I started making coffee at home properly. Good beans from a local roaster. A simple brewing routine. Something I actually enjoy instead of rushing through. And what I realized is this. When you turn something into a small ritual, it stops feeling like a replacement and starts feeling like an experience. You slow down for a moment. You enjoy the process. And strangely, it feels more satisfying than grabbing something on the go. Now that doesn't mean I never buy coffee outside. I still do. But I treat it differently. Cafe coffee becomes intentional spending. Like meeting someone, working outside, or breaking my routine on purpose. Something that actually adds to my day. So the goal here isn't to quit coffee. It's to stop letting it become invisible spending. Make it at home most of the time. Make it good. Make it something you actually enjoy. And then, when you do go out for coffee, it feels special again. And that's the part that actually changes your spending habits in the long run. Habit 5. Stop shopping just to kill time. This habit probably saved me more money than anything else. And the interesting part is, it didn't require more discipline. It required a different environment. Because for a long time, I didn't even realize I was shopping. I was just filling time, waiting for something, scrolling during breaks, browsing on my phone when I was bored. And that's where the real problem starts. Because shopping stops being a decision and becomes a reflex. The psychology behind this is actually pretty simple. The more often you expose yourself to products, even without the intention to buy, the more your brain starts treating it as a reward activity. And over time, your brain starts connecting boredom with spending. So every empty moment quietly turns into a shopping opportunity. That's why this habit is so powerful. I had to completely break the pattern of bored equals browse. Not by forcing myself to resist buying things, but by removing the situation that caused it. Instead of shopping when I had free time, I started replacing that time with things that actually kept my attention. Sometimes it was creative work. Sometimes it was going to the gym. Sometimes it was just going for a walk or doing something offline. Things that didn't give instant dopamine, but still felt satisfying in a deeper way. Now, I still shop, but only when I actually intend to. Not during random moments of boredom. Not while scrolling. Not while just looking. And to make this even easier, I started setting simple boundaries. No shopping first thing in the morning. No impulse buying from my phone. Big purchases only when I'm calm and intentional, not distracted. And if I do want to shop, I either do it in person or schedule it like a planned activity instead of a random habit. Because the truth is, most unnecessary spending doesn't come from real need. It comes from unstructured time. Habit 6. Live a boring, structured routine. This one might sound a bit strange at first, because nobody really wants to hear that a boring life can actually make you richer. But in reality, it often does. And I've noticed something very simple in my own life. The more unpredictable my routine becomes, the more I end up spending without thinking. When there's no structure to my day, everything starts to feel random. I wake up without a plan. I scroll my phone more. I end up seeing what other people are doing. And suddenly, I'm not just living my life. I'm comparing it. Trips, dinners, shopping, experiences. Everything starts looking like something I should also be doing. And that's where unnecessary spending quietly begins. Not because I actually need anything, but because I feel like I'm missing out. That's the real trap. But when I have a simple, structured routine, something interesting happens. I stop reacting. I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm working on. And I don't need to constantly decide what to do next. That's why a boring routine actually protects you. Not because it removes joy, but because it removes chaos. And I still travel. I still go out. I still try new things. But those things are intentional. They're planned, budgeted, chosen. Not random reactions to how I feel that day or what I saw online. And honestly, once you get used to a stable routine, it stops feeling restrictive. It starts feeling grounding, because you're no longer constantly deciding what to do with your time or money. You're just following a system that already works. And that's where consistency and financial stability actually comes from. Habit 7. Simplify your skincare and beauty routine. Beauty and skincare world is designed to do one thing really well. Make you feel like you're always missing something. A new serum, a new cream, a new step you need for better skin. A 10-step routine that somehow keeps growing into 15. And before you know it, your bathroom shelf looks like a mini store. When my wife was doing the most for her skin and buying everything she thought she needed, her routine was complicated, expensive, and honestly, not even consistent. And that's the funny part. Because the moment she simplified everything, her skin actually got better. Just fewer products, more consistency, and things she could actually stick to every day. Now her routine is simple. A small set of basic products, most of them affordable, and nothing unnecessary. And it works better than anything complicated she tried before. Consistency is what actually gives results, not the number of products you own. The same thing happens with makeup. Most people underestimate how long it takes to finish a product by a huge margin. You think something will last a few months, and it ends up lasting years. So what happens? You keep buying more, even though you already have more than enough. One habit that completely changes this is something called using what you have first. Instead of constantly rotating new products, you focus on finishing what you already own. Even if it feels slow, even if it feels a bit boring, Once you start treating your beauty routine as something to optimize instead of constantly upgrade, everything changes. You spend less, you waste less, and your routine becomes something you actually stick to, not something that keeps expanding forever. Habit 8. Wear your clothes. Be an outfit repeater. Now this is one of my favorite boring money habits because it changes both your spending and your confidence. And it's simple. Just wear your clothes. A lot. Repeat outfits. Reuse combinations. Stop treating every day like a fashion debut. Every time you wear something you already own instead of buying something new, you're lowering the real cost of your wardrobe. That's where the idea of cost per wear comes in. A $300 sweater that you wear 30 times. That's about $10 per use. A $30 sweater you wear once and forget. That's $30 for a single use. So the expensive item can actually be cheaper if you actually use it. A lot of people don't repeat outfits, not because they don't like them, but because they feel pressure to look new every time. There's this quiet fear that someone will notice and think, didn't they wear that before? But in reality, most people are too focused on themselves to remember what you wore last week. And once you stop worrying about that, something powerful happens. You start actually using your wardrobe. You discover what you naturally reach for, what makes you feel comfortable, what actually fits your lifestyle. And slowly, your style becomes clearer, not because you bought more, but because you wore more of what you already have. So yeah, outfit repeating might feel uncomfortable at first, but over time, it becomes one of the simplest ways to spend less and look more confident in your own style. Habit 9. Budgeting every single day. All right, this is the one most people don't want to hear, because the moment you say the word budgeting, half the audience mentally checks out. And I get it. It sounds boring. It sounds restrictive. It sounds like the opposite of freedom. But honestly, this is the habit that can completely change your financial life. And not in a small way. This is the habit that saved me thousands over time and gave me something even more valuable than money. Control. When I first committed to getting my finances in order, especially when I was paying off debt and fixing my spending habits, I started tracking everything. Not perfectly, not obsessively, just consistently. And suddenly, I started noticing patterns I never saw before. I could clearly see when I was spending emotionally. I could see which days I was more likely to order food. I could see how quickly small purchases added up without me realizing it. And that awareness alone started changing my behavior, without forcing myself. See, most people don't overspend because they lack discipline. They overspend because they lack visibility. Budgeting fixes that. Now, I don't treat budgeting like a strict rule book. I treat it like a feedback system. Every expense tells me something. Every pattern gives me information. And over time, my brain starts adjusting automatically. One thing that helped me a lot was tracking not just money, but context. Like how I was feeling when I spent it. Whether it was intentional or impulsive. Whether it actually made me happy or just filled a moment. Because once you start connecting emotions with spending, you stop making the same mistakes on autopilot. It doesn't take hours. For me, it's just a few minutes a day. A quick check-in. A simple log. Then I move on. It's not exciting. It's not fun. But it quietly gives you something most people never have with money. Clarity. And once you have clarity, you naturally start making better decisions without even trying that hard. Now here's the final habit. And honestly, this one is where everything starts to compound. Habit 10. Pay yourself first. Treat yourself like a bill. Because this is the habit that makes saving money happen without you even thinking about it. And the idea is simple. Treat yourself like a bill. Pay yourself first. Most people do money in this order. They get paid. They pay rent. They pay bills. They pay credit cards. They spend on life, food, fun, and whatever is left at the end. That's what they try to save. But there is almost never anything left. Because money has a way of expanding to whatever is available. If there's $500 sitting in your account, your brain will eventually find a way to use it. even if you didn't plan to. That's just how spending behavior works. So the shift that changes everything is this. Before you spend on anything else, you pay yourself first. The moment your income hits your account, a portion automatically goes into savings or investments. And the key word here is automatically. Because if you have to decide every month whether to save or not, you're relying on motivation. And motivation always loses to convenience. But when it's automated, your lifestyle adjusts around what's left, without you feeling like you're sacrificing anything. There's also another way to think about it that really helped me stick to this habit. You are a bill. Just like rent, electricity, and subscriptions, your future self deserves to be paid first, not last. Because every time you prioritize your future savings, you're essentially paying for the version of you that you haven't met yet. And that version of you benefits from compound growth over time. Even small amounts, invested consistently, can turn into something significant over decades. The real win here is the system. Because once you automate saving, you remove decision-making completely. And when saving becomes automatic, wealth stops depending on discipline and starts depending on structure. So, none of these habits are flashy, none of them are exciting, and none of them will make your life look impressive on social media. But that's kind of the point. Because building wealth in real life doesn't come from big moments or sudden breakthroughs. It comes from small, boring decisions, repeated consistently over time. You don't need a more disciplined version of yourself. You need a simpler system that works even on your worst days. Because boring habits, done consistently, don't just save money. They build freedom. And that's what this is really about. Thanks for watching.